everyone, welcome to the CPHI seminar. My name is Soya Song. I'm working in the regulatory management team of Merck, and I'm based in Shanghai. Let me take this opportunity to thank you all for joining this seminar. Today, I want to share with you how China has implemented the ICH Q3C Excipient standard. So let's get started. Here is the agenda. I hope to cover 3 points today. First, a brief overview of ICH Q3C. Second, a comparison of the USP, EP, and CHP on the implementation of ICH Q3C. Third, the plan of CHP to further implement ICH Q3C for Excipient standards. First, we will go through a brief overview of the ICH Q3C guideline. As we know, this guideline was first released in 1997 and was last updated in April 2021. Here is the scope. This guideline covers residual solvents used in excipients, drug substance, and drug products. It is only necessary to test for solvents that are used or produced in the manufacture or purification of drug substance, excipients, or drug products. Although manufacturers may choose to test the drug products, a calculative method may be used to calculate the residual solvents levels in the drug products from the level in the ingredients used to produce the drug products. If the calculation results in a level equal or below that recommended in this guideline, no testing of the drug products for residual solvents need be considered. If the calculated level is above the recommended level, the drug product should be tested to assess whether the formulation process has reduced the relevant solvents level to within the acceptable amount. Drug products should also be tested if a solvent is used during its manufacture. This guideline is valid for all dossier formulations and the routes of administration. In some situations, higher residual solvents levels may be acceptable. Each situation should be justified on a case-by-case basis. What is not covered? This guideline does not apply to currently marketed drug products or to possible new drug substance, excipients, or drug products used during the clinical late stage of development. Each country will give them a buffer time to implement it. So what does the ICH Q3C guidelines mean by residual solvents? The solvents are not completely removed by practical manufacturing techniques. It meets the definition of a residual solvents if it possesses these 3 key points. First, it is used or produced in the production of drug substance, excipients, or drug products. Second, cannot be excluded by manufacturing process. Third, it's an organic volatile chemicals. Residual solvents were classified into 4 classes. Class 1, solvents must be avoided based on their potential damage to human health. It also recognized as an environmental hazard and strongly suspended human carcinogen. Due to their unacceptable toxicity or harmful environmental efficacy, Class 1 solvents should not be used. However, their levels should be kept to a minimum, and the use of Class 2 solvents should be restricted if their usage is necessary to create a drug product with a significant therapeutic adverse. It causes irreversible toxicity, such as neurotoxicity or teratogenicity, and is non-genotoxic animal carcinogen. Solvents thought to have additional substantial but treatable toxicity. Class 3 solvents has low potential for human toxicity. No requires for a health-based exposure limit. These residual solvents are thought to be acceptable in level of 40 mg per day or less. Higher amounts can also be appropriate if they take strong production practice and manufacturing capabilities into account. If you wish to utilize the solvents in Class 4, which lack acceptable toxicological data, you must back it up with proof. PDE, which means the permitted daily exposure, is a new word that refers to a pharmaceutically permissible intake of residual solvents. It was introduced to eliminate misunderstanding caused by varying ADI value for the same chemical. And how to calculate the limitation for Class 2 solvents? These limits are considered acceptable for all substances, excipients, or products. Therefore, this option may be applied if the daily dose is not known or fixed. If all excipients and drug substances in a formulation meet the limits given in option 1, then these components may be used in any proportion. No further calculation is necessary provided the daily dose does not exceed 10 grams. Products that are administered in dose greater than 10 grams per day should be considered under option 2. It's not considered necessary for each component of the drug product to comply with the limits given in option 1. And option 2 may be applied by adding the amount of residual solvents present in each of the components of the drug products. The sum of the amount of solvents per day should be less than given by the PDE, and that is the formula of calculation. PDE is given in tons of per day, and the dose is given in grams per day. And how should residual solvents levels be reported? To satisfy the requirements of this guideline, manufacturers of pharmaceutical products require specific information on the amount of residual solvents in excipients or drug substance. The statements below are acceptable examples of the data a supplier of excipients or drug substance might send to pharmaceutical producer. So what does likely to be present mean? The solvents used in the last phase of production or the solvents utilized in earlier step of production but not consistently removed by a validated process. If there is, only Class 3 solvents are likely to be present. Loss on diving should be provided, and the upper limit should be less than 0.5%. Only Class 2 solvents are most likely to exceed. All fall below option 1's limit. Only Class 2 and Class 3 solvents are likely to be present in this case. Residual Class 3 solvents are less than 0.5%, while residual Class 2 solvents are below the option 1 limit. So, in conclusion, Class 1 solvents should be identified and measured if they are likely to be present. Class 2 or Class 3 solvents should be identified and measured if they are present in amounts larger than their option 1 limitation or 0.5% respectively. So let's move to the second point. Comparison of USP, EP, CHP on implementation of ISCH Q3C. The version R8 was currently updated on April 2021, and many countries have already implemented. This is the ISCH Q3C implementation status in pharmacopoeias of various countries. For USP, there is a general notice and the general chapter have the residual solvents. It set out the scope of application. USP was implemented the ISCH Q3C with general chapter 467, which had added the strategy for the identification and control of residual solvents. It is also noticed that, although the monograph normally does not deal with the detection of residual solvents, it must nonetheless adhere to the general chapter 467. In other words, just because there isn't a text item for residual solvents in the monographs doesn't authenticate it. There isn't a requirement for control. The validation method for residual solvents and alternative procedure are in General Chapter 1467. And the General Chapter 5.4 presents the Q3C for EP, and the restrictions must adhere to the General Chapter's requirements. The residual solvents in the monographs are not stated individually, with a few exceptions. The absence of test items in the monographs does not, however, negate the necessary for control, just like it does not negate the utility. Additionally, the identification and the management of residual solvents are covered in General Chapter 2.2.24. The ISCH Q3C conceptor was partially adopted for CHP in General Chapter 0861, named Determination of Residual Solvents, which was implemented in 2010. General Chapter 0251. Pharmaceutical excipients additionally requires that the excipients residual solvents must comply with the standards. The 8102 guidelines for the analysis of drug impurity mentioned that residual solvents can be identified by using either ISCH Q3C or General Chapter 0861 alone. It's an optional guide. This is the scope for each pharmacopoeias. The scope of USP includes the dietary ingredients, and the EP is exactly according to ISCH Q3C. And there are some differences in the scope of the CHP. CHP just mentioned organic solvents used in, but doesn't include the organic solvents produced in the products. And IPAC China provides a summary of how ISCH Q3C and pharmacopoeia vary among countries. As of now, the USP and EP are harmonized with the ICH-Q3C and have set up a residual solvents management mechanism. The text items for residual solvents in the monographs are not specified individually for the USP and EP, unless they are exceptional situations. The CHP partly implements the ICH-Q3C. Along the implementation of residual solvents in the CHP does not presently include the risk assessment strategy in the Q3C and is managed by established residual solvents text item in individual monographs. And I'd like to move to the next part. It's the key point, the plan of CHP to further implement ICH-Q3C for excipient standards. This is the ICH-Q3C and the CHP excipient standards harmonization program, which was published by the CHP committee in August of this year, and shows that China has adopted ICH-Q3C. The harmonization initiative aims to harmonize the present difference between ICH-Q3C and the CHP requirements for residual solvents of excipients. The CHP will be updated to reflect the harmonized standards. Let's start by evaluating the 5 volumes between the ICH-Q3C and the CH excipient standards. Inconsistent with ICH-Q3C are the following. First, the definition of residual solvents. There is some difference. And second, units for reporting residual solvents. And the third, the alternative method for residual solvents. It is advised to add the option of other validation method. And the fourth, the requirement for the limits of Class 2 and Class 3 residual solvents. For instance, Method 2 is not covered by the registration for Class 2 residual solvents in ICH-Q3C. And ICH-Q3C permits greater limits for Class 3 solvents under appropriate situations for Class 3 residual solvents limitations. And the last, different monographs use different setting ways. There's some inconsistency in the control requirement for residual solvents and Q3C, which leads to further taxing. IPAC China also have sorted 335 excipient monographs in the CHP, 72 of which has residual solvents taxing item under individual monograph, including 129 residual solvents. Among them are the 95 tax items that belong to Class 1 to Class 4, and 73 additional solvents outside of the ICH-Q3C's range. And there are also 10 total impurities in a monograph that is special. And since the Q3C is not fully implemented in the individual monographs, the individual monographs needs to be revised further. Let me take methanol as an example in the monograph. The limit in ICH-Q3C is 3000 ppm, and the limit in CHP General Chapter 0861 is 0.3%. But we could find in different monographs. The limits in monographs range from 0.02% to 1%, So there is a need to harmonize with the ICH-Q3C. And the general notice for pharmaceutical excipients, General Chapter 0 to 51 and 0861 and 9102. Monographs are the 5 key components of the CHP and Q3C harmonization. First, the content of the Q3C requirements in the excipient general notice will be deleted and introduced into these 3 general chapters. And the general chapter 0251 will introduce the idea of Q3C. And the other 2 general chapter revision plan is still being working on. And excipient monograph will be updated on a case-by-case basis. Totally speaking, the residual solvent of excipient should meet the general chapter's requirement of CHP. In principle, the new and amended monograph should be considered not to set the particular text items for the general residual solvents in monograph. There are 3 principles could be referred to in the revision of setting residual solvents in text items of monograph. First, solvents in class 1 should not be exported in the manufacture of excipients because of their unacceptable toxicity or their deleterious environmental effect. However, if their use is unavailable in order to produce an excipient with a significant adverse, then their levels should be restricted as shown in ICH-Q3C guideline, unless otherwise justified. If class 1 solvents are likely to be present, they should be identified and codified. If necessary, it should be considered to set limits in spec or monograph and identify the text method involved. Second, regarding residual solvents, class 2 and class 3 or the other solvents without sufficient toxicologic data, it should be considered not to set the text items in spec or monograph, but it should comply with the general chapter residual solvents of CHP. If solvents of class 2 or class 3 are present as greater than their general chapter or Q3C option 1 limits of 0.5%, respectively, they should be identified and codified. And it is responsible of excipients supplier to transfer your true report level of residual solvents to customers, and the test method should be as well. In addition, if there are some particular residual solvents not listed in Q3C or general chapter of CHP, but it has been evaluated with some safety register with the process control level, the control situation of domestic and other pharmacopoeias, it should be considered to set the test item and limits in spec or monograph, such as ethylene oxide in particular excipients. These above mentioned are the chapter of protocol for harmonizing excipient status in CHP with ICH-Q3C. This is the takeaway of today's presentation. First, CHP General Chapter already adopted portion of ICH-Q3C concept. Second, the adjustment of General Chapter and revision of Excipients monograph to fully implement ICH-Q3C is on the way. Third, suggested excipients user and maker in China to pay attention on CHP monograph requirements and ICH-Q3C requirements. If there are comments and suggestions to submit to CHP for further communication. And we have come to the end of my presentation. I have put the contact information in this slide. If you have any question, please feel free to let me know. Thank you for your attention. Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lina Lee from Clarent. I'm so glad to have the opportunity to share one topic with you. The topic of my presentation today is comparison of chemical drug substance and pharmaceutical excipient registration in China. I hereby declare that this presentation is only represent my personal opinion. If you have any comments or suggestions, please don't hesitate to contact with me. Thank you. When you start registration of drug substance or excipient in one country, what questions do you think about? In my opinion, I may think about the following question. The first question, which authority is responsible for registrations, review and approval? The second question, what documents need to be submitted? The third question, what's the registration process like? The first question, how long does it take from registration dossier submission to the final approval? The last question, how much is the registration fee? My share today will answer these questions. Yeah. My share today is in 5 parts. The first part is the definition of drug substance and excipient. The second one is relevant authority for drug substance and excipient. The third part is dossier preparation. It includes the classification of drug substance or excipient, also include the how to prepare the dossier content. The fourth part is registration procedure. The fifth part is registration fee. It's only mention the official registration fee. Let's start from the definition. Drug substance. What's drug substance? I refer IPAC glossary. Drug substance is the unformulated drug substance that may subsequently be formulated with excipients to produce the dosage form. What's excipient? Anything other than drug substance in the drug product. These two definitions are referred to IPAC glossary. Yeah, for the second part is relevant authority. Which authority is responsible for reviewing and approval application of drug substance or excipient in China? The answer is CDE, Center for Drug Evaluation, NMPA. CDE is a department directly under the National Medical Product Administration. Yeah, briefly called NMPA. You can find many resources on CDE website. For example, as shown in this slide, The CD website has a database of API registration, pharmaceutical or excipient registration, and pharmaceutical packing material registration. In this slide, you can also search some information. I mentioned here it means CD website. For example, if you type in the product name, you will find the following information. It's registration number, product name, application name, applicant address or applicant. Product source is from China or from overseas. Its packing size, its strength, and the update date. It's the schedule for bonding with formulation. A means activated. I means inactive. It's the relevant authority. For drug substance or excipient, different classification has the different requirement on dossier. So before dossier preparation, we need to know the classification. For chemical drug substance, there are only two types after you are replying this question. Is the same drug substance manufactured by others used in drug product in China market or not? If your answer is yes, congratulations. You can choose the way of independent review, or else it can be rejected by bonding with formulation. Of course, for excipient, the only way is bonding with formulation. For excipient, there are a lot of classification. The three classification. Class 1 is excipients having not been used in any drug product manufactured both in China and overseas. Class 2, classification 2, excipient having been used in any drug product marketed in China or overseas. Class 3, excipient having been used in any foods or cosmetics. There are also a lot of sub-classification. Consider the limited time. I will not read one by one. The excipient classification. After classification, we need to do documents preparation. For drug substance registration in China, the content follows CTD format. As you know, Model 1 of CTD format is for the regional information. CD also issued the regulation related to the Model 1. CDE issued a notice on the requirement of Model 1 in 2020, which is called Regulation Number 6, 2020. I list the table of content of Model 1 here. If you have further interest, you can learn more from this Regulation Number 6, 2020. Regarding documents to be submitted for Excipient, NMPA issued an announcement in regulation in 2019, which is called number 6 announcement. In this announcement, the document's requirement is listed in detail. Here I only list the table of contents. If you have further interest, you can check this regulation in detail, called number 56, issued in 2019. After documents are ready, the next question coming: how to submit a dossier for drug substance and excipient. I put two pictures here. You may already guess it. Yes, it's by CD or DVD. We can convert the content in Word format into CD or DVD, then put this material into bag of files, then mail it to CDE or submit to CDE face-to-face. For above parts, we are discuss the dossier preparation and submission. After submission, what's the procedure for documents running in CDE? This is a complex procedure. I will explain the procedure with this flow chart. We can divide this procedure into 3 steps. The first step is completeness review. After we submit the dossier to CDE, CDE will conduct the complete review for the content. If it's complete for drug substance, CDE will issue acceptance notification. They also will publish your registration information on CDE website. It's the first step. The second step is technical review. When the technical review starts, there are 2 situations for drug substance. For drug substance available in China market, the applicant can apply independent review. For this kind of drug substance, CDE will conduct a technical review without formulations bonding. However, for other types of drug substance, CDE can start technical review only after formulation bonding. During the period of technical review, CDE may require sample test specification verification. This is conducted by NIFDC. The full name of NIFDC is National Institutes for Food and Drug Control. Based on risk assessment, there may have site inspection. The site inspection is conducted by CFDI. The full name of CFDI is Center for Food and Drug Inspection. It's also based on risk assessment. If the product is not included in Chinese pharmacopoeia, you may need to apply common name verification. It's conducted by the Chinese Pharmacopoeia Commission. If the applicant pass the above challenges, these challenges also including the good deficiency letter reply, we come to the final step to get the final conclusion, pass or not pass. If pass, CD will issue chemical drug substance approval notification. Meanwhile, the registration status on CD website will be changed from I to A, from inactivated to activated. If not pass, CD will issue chemical drug substance not approval notification. This is registration procedure for drug substance. After reviewing the procedure for drug substance, let's pay attention to the difference of registration procedure between drug substance and excipient. For complete review, after CD confirming the completeness, CD will not issue accept the notification. They only publish the registration information on CD website. The second difference is about the timing of technical review. For drug substance, if it conforms to the independent review application, technical review will happen without formulations bonding. But for excipient, there is only one way. For studying technical review, that's formulation customers bonding. The rest steps are similar. Please note, CD will not issue notification in red format to applicant. After approval, the status on CD website will be changed from I to A. Not approval, if not pass, the status on CD website still keep I. This is the registration procedure for excipient. When we start one registration project, we also need to consider the budget. Budget is very important. For drug substance, is there any official registration fee? Yes, the answer is yes. You can refer this table to check how much money we should pay for the drug substance registration. For excipient, there is no official fee. Thank you for your time. I already share my my presentation. It's based on my experience. If you have any comment, please don't hesitate to contact with me. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
I'm very glad to be here to introduce the comparison of China and APEC PQG GMP 2022 version. I'm Shan Gao from Quality Subcommittee of APEC China. I have more than 10 years of quality assurance experience in drug manufacturing company. Now I'm working in DKSH China, mainly responsible for CDE registration and quality management of excipients. With the implementation of Chinese bundling review policy, more and more imported excipients enter the Chinese market, and the attention to Chinese excipient GMP has also increased. In 2020, APEC China translated the Chinese excipient GMP to English and put it on website for public reference. In this webinar, we just identify the main difference between China and APEC PQG GMP. If you are interested in the full text of China Excipient GMP, you can download from APEC China website to read it. Hope my sharing could increase your understanding of Chinese Excipient GMP. To ensure the stable network, I will turn off the camera during presentation. Hope you can understand. Okay, let's start from agenda. The first part is brief introduction of Chinese regulation on excipient manufacturing. Then the brief introduction of China and the APEC PQG GMP. The third part is the key comparison. The final part is the conclusions. Okay, let's start from the first part. The most important law for pharmaceutical industry in China is the Drug Administration Law of PRC, which is fundamental for drug management. The revised edition in 2019 adheres to the Chairman Xi Jinping's four strictest guidelines on drug safety, including the strictest standards, the strictest supervision, the strictest punishment, and the strictest accountability to ensure the drug quality and protect public health. DAL stipulates that the quality, safety, and function of excipient should meet the requirements for pharmaceutical use, and MAH should perform audit to ensure this purpose. In 2020, China NMPA updated the two provisions. One is for drug registration, and the other one is for supervision and administration of drug manufacturing, according to DAL. Based on risk assessment, China NMPA may propose extended inspections on excipients during bundling review. Excipient manufacturing should comply with the GMP requirement, and Provincial Drug Authority will perform regular supervision and extended inspection. In July 2019, China CDE issued an announcement of number 56 on the further improving bundling review, which confirmed on-site inspection of excipient manufacturing by PDA should be carried out in accordance with the China GMP for pharmaceutical excipients, published in year of 2006. After the brief regulation introduction, I think you may have a preliminary understanding of Chinese laws and regulations. Then we will take a quick look at the frame structure of China and APEC PQG GMP 2022 version. The China Excipient GMP has 13 chapters, the content of which refers to 2001 APEC GMP guidelines for bulk pharmaceutical excipients, and the framework referred to the GMP for drug product. The language is more concise, and there are many mandatory clauses for implementation. Each company may have a different understanding, resulting in different depths of implementation. The new edition may be published in near future. APEC PQG GMP 2022 is revised to align with ISO 9001 to 2015 requirements. Another significant enhancement is the provision of examples for GMP interpretation and implementation, without adding further requirements. For this reason, this guide is published in two parts. Part 1 includes the good manufacturing practice for excipients. Part 2 includes good manufacturing practices for excipients with notes providing common examples. IPAC PQG GMP 2022 has some key changes, mainly reflected in structure and terms, products and services, interested parties, risk-based thinking, applicability, documented information, organizational knowledge, control of external provision. However, these changes are not substantive from last version. It's still aligned with Excipient GMP 2021 and NC's IPAC and NSF IPAC NC 363. Okay, the next part is the key comparison between China and IPAC PQG GMP. In 2020, Excipient have performed gap analysis between China and the Excipient GMP. Excipient GMP and IPAC PQG GMP. Basically, only very few significant differences in terms of requirements of China GMP and IPAC PQG GMP. Even if the way to approach GMP is very different. China GMP is standard and elaborated starting from drug product GMP, so it's more oriented as instruction rather than system basis. When IPAC PQG GMP is a guide which provides detailed recommendations for implementation and is elaborated from the structure of ISO 9001. So the basis is first building a QMS, then to identify the requirements needed for pharmaceutical excipients. IPAC PQG GMP and China GMP are not equivalent, but are compatible together. On September 6th of this year, Excipient issued a draft annex to GMP standard with additional classes to comply with China GMP for excipients. We only focus some key differences in China and IPAC PQG GMP. For example, in IPAC PQG GMP, quality management system elements was included, such as continuous improvement, PDCA, top management commitments, quality policy, customer satisfaction assessment, communication to customers, and customer property. The detailed contents will be shown in later slides. The significant difference is application. IPAC PQG GMP 2022 version provides GMP appropriate to the manufacturing of all excipients, including those that are supplied sterile or sterile and those intended for parenteral, ocular, inhalation, or open wound use. Manufacturing including repackaging and labeling activities. IPAC PQG GMP also applied to GMP services. Performed by excipient manufacturers on behalf of their customer, for example, CMO or CRO services. In China GMP animal sourced fermentation of strains and aseptic excipients are also covered. IPAC PQG GMP 2022 apply risk-based approach throughout the whole content with a total of 14 sections. For example, we can find the documented risk assessment requirement in excipient GMP implementation and other sections. And we also can find the suggested risk justification in 8 different sections. China Excipient GMP is too old to be based on risk-based approach. NMPA now are preparing the new edition. We guess risk assessment will be fully adopted. Perhaps you have read the EU risk assessment guidelines. So, how are these risk assessments different? APAC PQG GMP 2022 is intended for excipient manufacturer, who should perform a risk assessment to determine what controls are needed to implement appropriate GMP for their intended and marketed use of the excipient. But EU Commission guideline is intended for the excipient user, who should perform a risk assessment to determine the appropriate GMP for the pharmaceutical excipients used in the drug formulation. Validation and verification are the obvious differences between China GMP and APAC PQG GMP. In China GMP, validation plan, protocol, and reports should be prepared and approved. DQ, IQ, OQ, PQ should be carried out for manufacturing buildings, facilities, and equipment. Process validation should be conducted to define and demonstrate effective control of manufacturing process, including sampling and in-process testing activities. Revalidation of process should be conducted where evaluation of change identifies there is an impact on excipient quality. But in the APAC PQG GMP 2022, the concept of validation is a key element in ensuring that processes are capable of producing an excipient that meets specifications. The excipient manufacturer may not perform validation activities in the same manner as the pharmaceutical industry. However, many activities leading to the same degree of assurance are performed within the excipient industry. For example, the process capability studies, development and scale-up reports, and periodic product reviews are better substitution of validation. Also, data integrity is clearly relevant to excipient manufacturing. Excipient suppliers may implement different data integrity controls than drug product manufacturers. However, the basic principles, often referred to as ALCOA or ALCOA plus, have always been inherent in the GMPs. There are some recommendations for excipient manufacturing from APAC Federation. Excipient suppliers should identify risks to their critical data and establish document controls to implement mitigating measures whenever feasible and appropriate. If you are interested in the position paper, you can find it on APAC Federation website. General requirements on water quality in China GMP and APAC PQG GMP are consistent, such as a minimum drinking water and the monitoring of water treatment. When drinking water quality is insufficient to ensure excipient quality, appropriate chemical and/or microbiological water quality limits should be defined. In China GMP, if a non-sterile excipient produced by the manufacturer is used for sterile drug products, the process water for final separation and refining of the excipient should be monitored. And besides, the total bacteria count and endotoxin should be controlled. In IPAC PQG GMP 2022, a risk assessment should be performed to consider the risk to excipient quality from water used in the manufacturing. Water that could impact the excipient quality, regardless of its source, should have documented specifications and be of suitable quality for its intended use. There are different positions on excipient stability study. In IPAC PQG GMP, 3 options for design of excipient stability study include option 1, utilize historical data including that found in the literature and generate a report summarizing the data and drawing conclusions about excipient stability. Option 2, conduct a study using the excipient packed in the commercial packaging placed in one or more warehouses, which are used to hold commercial stocks. Option 3, conduct a study using controlled conditions and/or recommendations from ICQ 1A and/or WHO guideline. Option 1 and 2 are useful when no normal stability study is required. Option 3 may be used for novel and new excipients, where stability data in accordance with option 1 and 2 are unavailable. In China GMP, stability tests of retained samples of excipients should be documented and recorded. Tests should be carried out periodically following the stability testing schedule. Okay, until now I have shared the important parts. Here is the conclusions. China excipient GMP clearly includes animal source and strain fermentation excipients with a wide range and clear chapters. But some of the contents are already a bit behind, so we expect that NMPA will release a new version of draft GMP for excipients next year. IPAC PQG GMP 2022 is up to date and incorporates risk management and data integrity concepts in a detailed yet flexible manner that's easy for manufacturers to understand and implement. China and IPAC PQG GMP have both mutual references and their own differences. The purpose of identifying the differences is to promote the communication of regulations between excipient producers and users, to unify the GMP audit standards in the future, promoting the healthy development of the industry. Okay, here my sharing today. Thank you for your listening. If you have any comments, please email to me for further discussion. Thank you.
Hello everyone, thanks for your time. I'm Chuanhong Li from Suzhou Capsule, which belongs to Capsules and Health Ingredients Division of Lonza. Thanks for this opportunity. I will give an overview of the excipient regulatory requirements and their boundary review policy around these 4 parts. The first part is the introduction of boundary review policy between drugs and AEP. AEP refers to API, excipients, and packaging materials and containers. Firstly, let's see the organization of China Drug Regulatory System. The National Medical Product Administration, NMPA, which is the former CFDA, regulates drugs, medical devices, and cosmetics. NMPA reports to the State Administration for Market Regulatory, SAMR. Additionally, food was separated from NMPA and is regulated by SAMR. NMPA has branches of affiliated agencies. The CDE is responsible for evaluating drug registration application and the registration renewal application of imported drugs. NMPA established the drug registration system led by CDE review and supported by drug registration testing, inspection, and monitoring and re-evaluation. The Chinese Pharmacopoeia Commission is responsible for national drug standard establishment and adopted the name approval. For domestic drugs, it involves 2 levels of administration, including the NMPA and the provincial MPA. English website of NMPA is available. You can search for main regulations and the update to know China drug regulatory better. Since the reform of drug review and approval system in the year 2015, a series of changes have taken place in China drug regulatory system. Among them, the boundary review policy was implemented. Boundary review policy refers to during the review and approval of a drug application, CDE should combine the review and approval of relevant API and combine the review of relevant excipients and direct contact packaging materials and containers. The Drug Administration Law was revised and went into force in 2019. The boundary review policy was written into the legislation. The 2 most important provisions related to drug registration and drug production supervision were revised and went into effect in 2020. The boundary review is part of drug review procedure, and the new requirements are set on AEP production supervision. It also emphasizes that marketing authorization holder should take the main responsibility for drug product quality and should be responsible for the quality of the AEP used. The 4 regulations from number 134 to number 56 issued by CDE set detailed requirements on the implementation of boundary review policy. Excipient GMP compliance had changed to be mandatory, and the Chinese Pharmacopoeia compliance had been strengthened, and the CHP becomes to be the threshold standard for entering the Chinese market. The official guidelines for excipients are limited. Usually, we can reference those guidelines for drug product. Please to be noted, API is still regulated according to drug product. API DMF need phase. API can obtain approval certificate and can go individual review under certain condition. And the registration renewal is required. So in the following slides, I will only introduce the regulatory requirements on excipients. The requirements apply to excipients used in domestic and imported drug products. Next, let's see the boundary review pathway. First, through China DMF. The excipient registrant register China DMF on CDE platform according to the regulation requirements. China DMF is also called CDE notification or CDE registration. Initially, the status of China DMF is inactive, which means not past the boundary review and approval yet. The excipient registrant issues letter of authorization to the drug applicant based on request. When the drug registration, such as drug marketing authorization application and the supplementary application, goes technical review, boundary review of the excipients will be initiated. The timeline of excipients review depends on the drug review and approval. Once the drug product is approved, the excipient DMF will turn to active, which means approved for use in marketed drug products. If the drug is rejected, the excipient DMF will remain the inactive status. Please note that the meaning of A or I is different from that of US DMF. No phase is needed for China DMF, as well as boundary review of the excipients. The China DMF with the A status might be boundary reviewed for multiple times based on CDE review needs. CDE issued an exemption list of excipients which are exempted from registering DMF based on the excipient's use history and the recognized safety. Currently, it covers 6 groups of excipients, including flavoring and sweetening agents, flavors species, pigments colorants, pH adjusters, inorganic salts, and benzene-free ink for oral dosage form printing. The exemption applies only to the excipients in the list, which are used in accordance with the listed intended use. Please reference the number 56 for detailed information. Basic information of above excipients should be included in the drug registration dossier. The exemption list could be updated by CDE. If the excipient used in drug product has no DMF, then all study materials of the excipient should be submitted together in the drug registration dossier. The requirement for preparing the study materials of excipients is the same as filing a DMF, but the excipients will not obtain China DMF with the active status after the drug product approval. It indeed provides an exceptional and alternative way for drug applicant using excipients without DMF for drug registration. During clinical trial application stage, if novel excipients are used, either DMF should be available or all study materials should be submitted together in the clinical trial application dossier. For other excipients, the drug applicant should provide necessary information. China DMF maintenance is required regardless of the status, active or inactive. The maintenance may include the CDE inquiry response, change control, and the annual report. During boundary review, CDE might inquiry by call or issue deficiency letter. It is required to give response within the timeline. In the case of changes in pharmaceutical excipients, the registrant shall perform related study and update the DMF timely. An annual report should be submitted in the first quarter of each year. The contents include list of changes occurred in last year, list of newly authorized parties in last year. If failing to submit annual report, CDE has the right to terminate the DMF and forbid excipients used in the marketed drug products. Let's see the second part, registration specification of excipients. The latest version of Chinese pharmacopoeia is CHP 2020. CHP is mainly composed of general notice, general technical requirements, and monographs. It includes 4 volumes. Volume 1 is for traditional Chinese medicines. Volume 2 for chemical drugs. Volume 3 for biological products. Volume 4 contains general chapter, technical guidelines, and monograph for pharmaceutical excipients. General chapter is mandatory, and the technical guidelines is highly recommended. In Article 8, General Notice, it claims that the pharmaceutical excipients shall comply with the relevant regulations and requirements, as well as the general chapter for pharmaceutical excipients. The technical guidelines relevant to excipients include excipients functionality-related characteristics, guidelines for animal-derived excipients, guidelines for premixing and co-processing excipients. CHP 2020 contains monographs for 335 kinds of excipients. Official CHP contact for each monograph has been set up to help address the problems encountered by companies. It really helps, so don't hesitate to contact. In the DMF, we need to submit a registration specification of the excipients. According to number 56, the excipients are classified into different categories based on use history and compendial inclusion. For category 1 and 2.1, the excipient registrant needed to establish the registration specification with sufficient justification. For category 2.2 and 2.3, referring to the USP, EP, BP, JP is a good choice. For category 2.4, CHP monograph compliance is required if the CHP test items or limits are not applicable. Sufficient supporting data should be provided. For category 3, China National Food Safety Standard or National Cosmetic Standard can be referred to establish the registration specification. However, if pharmacopoeia standard is available, referring to food standard might be rejected. For above categories, writing the registration specification need to follow the pharmacopoeia format. All excipients with CHP monographs should be tested according to the prescribed methods. Other verified methods could be used, but the method defined in CHP shall prevail when there is a conflict. The third part is about the supervision requirements for excipients production. In accordance with drug administration law, the excipients used for the manufacturing of drug products shall comply with the medicinal requirements and the relevant GMP. Here, medicinal requirements refer to the quality, safety, and the function of excipients should meet the needs of drug products according to the definition from the regulations. For drug manufacturing, the audit shall be performed on the suppliers of excipients to ensure the excipients comply with the specified requirements. According to the two provisions and the regulations on boundary review, excipients used for drug production shall comply with the excipient GMP. There is no GMP certification now. Provincial MPA conduct regular inspection on excipients
manufacturer and can carry out extended inspection when necessary. Is CFDI for overseas excipients inspection. During boundary review, based on risk assessment, extended registration inspection might be conducted. When there is doubt on safety, data authenticity, the authority might conduct for-cause inspection. Also, the excipient supplier has the responsibility to accept a quality audit from the marketing authorization holder of the drug manufacturer. The last part, I will give a short introduction of the change management of excipients. When change happens to excipients, the excipient registrant should perform change assessment. On one hand, maintain the China DMF. On the other hand, should notify the relevant drug manufacturer or MAH in a timely manner. Changes of excipients are categorized into 4 levels, but currently there is no guidance for excipient change assessment. We can reference a series of technical guidelines for drug product change management and the APEC Significant Change Guide. It encourages to manage change control and notification through quality agreement between excipients, supplier, and user. When receiving the change notification, the drug manufacturer should conduct impact assessment from aspects of safety, efficacy, and quality control of the drug products. For a marketed drug product, if the change is categorized as a major change, MAH should submit supplementary application to CDE. For minor change and moderate change, it can go through annual report and filing. If it is difficult to determine the change level, you can consult the authority. For the drug post-approval change management, provisions for change management as well as the revision of the technical guidelines have been released in 2021. The change in excipients is an important part of drug change management, as change management involves a complex situation and assessment. Here I only remind that for the change to excipients which are under DMF management, if the excipients have not been registered DMF or the DMF status is inactive, it should be regarded as major change and managed through supplementary application for approval. Okay, thank you for your attention. Here I want to thank Florence Xu from Calcon, the Chair of Regulatory Affairs Subcommittee of APEC China, for helping me to review the slides. Hope the overview can help you refresh or improve the understanding on the China excipient regulatory requirements. As the regulations and requirements are undergoing updates, APEC China hopes to build a bridge for sharing the China regulatory development. Any questions, please feel free to reach out to APEC China. Thank you very much.